Hi, everybody. We are so glad you've joined us. I'm Jack Doles, and this is Big Game Bound. Could you imagine how surly we'd be without the NFL and fantasy football? But tonight we score a victory in 2020 with the return of the National Football League. The season kicks off with the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Houston Texans. Here's our game plan for week one. We've got a jam-packed show. You'll hear from our NFL analyst, Jarrett Payton. Correspondents from around the league will join us. Our big guest is Dolphins special teams captain Kayvon Frazier, and we'll introduce you to a new segment with the Wizard of Odds, Kenny White. Let's start in Chicago with Jarrett Payton from WGN. Worked with him in the Super Bowl last year, and I don't think I've ever been with a man as prepared as he is. Jarrett, great to see you again. No preseason games, no OTAs, so these teams can't possibly be prepared to the level they have been for past openers. Will the product take a hit in week one?
I think, Jack, we're going to see a little bit of a decline in some of the production, especially out the gate. But, you know, when you have veteran quarterbacks, I think it gives you an opportunity to be successful. So I think with teams, when you look at teams like the Saints and other quarterbacks around the league with Drew Brees and Tom Brady, those teams, those guys are going to be ready because they're always on guard. I look at these defenses, though, because the one thing that these teams are not hitting a lot, especially, you know, coming into the regular season. So when you're not tackling a lot, do you miss tackles in games? And I think that's what we're going to have to see. These guys getting their juices going, their everything flowing a little bit. But I definitely think after week one, we're going to see these teams start taking that next step and getting back into what they are accustomed to doing.
Jared, which team do you think improved itself the most in the offseason?
Man, this one's actually hard for me because I think there's two teams. I think the obvious one, you and I had the conversation down in Florida, just thinking about where Tom Brady was going to go. And now that we see him in Tampa with the Bucs, they're a team that has definitely gotten better. And you look at Chris Godwin, you look at Mike Evans, along with Gronk and Leonard Fournette and the GOAT Tom Brady. I think that right there shows you that you improved. And at the quarterback position, that is a huge plus for them. And I think Tom Brady's going to definitely be that guy that's going to help them get over that hump, especially offensively. I think you also have to look at the Cardinals as well. You got DeAndre Hopkins, you got Isaiah Simmons from Clemson, the rookie coming in, and Josh Jones, the offensive tackle. Patrick Peterson said this is probably the best football team on paper that he's been on. So that's saying something. I think Kyler Murray is going to have an opportunity offensively to take it to another level. And I think we could see some really good football in the desert.
All right, so New England lost Brady. They had a handful of players opt out. Are the Patriots still the team to beat in the AFC East?
This one's going to be hard for me because I think, you know, the Patriots are still on top. You look at Bill Belichick, you got Cam Newton there. But I'm going to switch it up just a little bit. I'm going with the Bills. I just think there's something special there. They haven't won a division crown since 1995, Jack. So I think the last time that was when Jim Kelly was still underneath center for that squad. The main thing is Stephon Diggs coming over, and that's the one thing that you look at this organization. They haven't had a number one receiver and a quarterback. I think Josh Allen is going to take that next step as a quarterback this season. And now that you have a legit number one wide receiver, I think this gives them, and also let's not forget about a really, really good defense. This is going to give them an opportunity to win a division, even though I know the Pats still have Bill Belichick, Cam Newton. I'm going with the Bills on this one.
All right, Jarrett, the sports world's just been thrown in disarray. It's the year of COVID. We've seen NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball games postponed because players took a stand for social justice. Do you have confidence we'll see an entire season played without interruptions from one or the other?
I have a hard time. I think I would be more worried about COVID-19. I think that right there, to see the plan that the NFL has, right? They've had an opportunity to see all these other leagues kind of get going and have their protocols. And so, you know, if the NFL can't figure out a way and to, even though there's no bubble, to kind of have these things in order with all the time that they've had, then it could be an issue. When it comes to all the social justice issues as well, I think we're going to see teams and other players take that stand as well to be able to show. A lot of these guys, I think people forget. When we think about, you know, these guys making all this money, I think we forget about where a lot of these actually black players come from and their neighborhoods and the people that they grew up in. This is affecting them in ways that I think a lot of people don't understand. And everybody always wants to look at the money, but they see where they are now, but forget where they came from. And so it's on a lot of guys' hearts. And I think if we can really start seeing these guys not only take a stand, but other guys as well, hopefully that could be the change that everybody is looking for, not just in the NFL, but also around the world as well.
Yeah, there's a conversation taking place around this country that hasn't been had in quite some time. And we saw Colin Kaepernick and the impact that his stand had on his career. From what the commissioner has said recently, it would appear the league has a better understanding of the message Cap was trying to convey. Do you think players will feel more comfortable taking stands, or will they feel pressure to take stands after the events of this offseason?
No, I think with seeing with the other leagues, there's really guys taking a stand and using their voice. I think it's really going to be on these NFL players to, do what they want. I mean, we think about back when Cap took the knee and all that kind of came with all that. And over time, we started seeing other guys as well. I think with seeing the NBA and the NHL and the WNBA and all these other leagues where we're seeing all these players use their voice, and rightfully so, man, I think it's going to maybe be a little bit easier for these NFL players and to kind of take this stand. But this is what you work so hard for. You work hard to have a voice. You work hard to have this platform. Why not be able to use it in a positive way? And if you're not hurting anybody and you're bringing light to some of the issues that are going on in our country and in our world and hopefully make it better, to me, you have to be able to use it. And it's on these guys to be able to figure out how they want to use their platforms and their voice.
Time to zip around the league, check in with our correspondents. The defending Super Bowl champions are the Kansas City Chiefs. And Rob Collins, not only does he know the best place in Kansas City for barbecue, he knows the Kansas City Chiefs inside and out. One of the hardest working guys in the business. Great to have you back on Big Game Bound, Rob. Do you see any reason why the Chiefs can't repeat?
Really, I don't see any reasons why the Chiefs can't compete. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes gets injured or, COVID wipes out the season, that's about it, in my opinion. The Chiefs are returning almost all of their starters from the Super Bowl, and they have the entire coaching staff back. That cannot be understated. With the truncated offseason, without a preseason, the Chiefs have a massive advantage over every other team in the NFL, man. Can you imagine being a first-year coach or a coordinator in this COVID climate? That's not going to be good.
No, it wouldn't be. And I got to believe this will be the last year Andy Reid keeps this coaching staff intact, because some of these guys are going to be off taking head coaching jobs next year. Patrick Mahomes signs a record contract in the offseason, just got engaged, received his Super Bowl ring. Is it possible his best days are yet to come?
We're certainly hoping so here in Chiefs Kingdom, and it is certainly ring season here in Kansas City. Chiefs Kingdom is hoping that this is the start of the dynasty, and I know we're looking through Chiefs-colored glasses here, but it has all the makings of a repeat and potential dynasty. We know it's been over 20 years since the Patriots did it, but Mahomes is locked up for the next decade. Andy Reid just signed a 6-year extension with those two, and the way GM Brett Veach seems to hit on draft picks and sign the right guys in free agency, there's a chance these guys could put up as many rings and put those rings together like Thanos and have unprecedented power over the NFL. Let's hope so.
Yeah, speaking of draft picks, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, did the Chiefs get the steal of this draft? How much of a weapon will he be?
Oh, man, CEH is a dream draft pick for head coach Andy Reid. Edwards-Helaire can cause more headaches for defensive coordinators than all of us parents trying to figure out how to teach our kids during remote learning. He's a matchup nightmare out of the backfield, man. If he gets one-on-one with the linebackers, it's over. And if defenses try to cover the Chiefs with man coverage, they can send receivers deep, have Kelsey in the seam, and then Clyde on the wheel route out of the backfield. You really can't defend him. Now, the key for Clyde Edwards-Helaire this season, pass protection. He's got to be able to pick it up, got to keep that $500 million man Mahomes upright and healthy.
Is that their biggest concern in 2020? Is it pass protection?
Pass protection will be huge, especially with young running backs. That's usually what keeps them off the playing field for Andy Reid. You got to be able to do that, and from what we've seen so far in the very limited time we've been out to practice, we've seen Clyde being able to do so. The other biggest concern is getting fat and happy. Everybody's got a ring, everybody's got paid. That usually is what deters teams from repeating. But the players here are saying last year is in the past. They already put it in the rearview, man. Now they're looking to run it back. That's the mantra around Kansas City, run it back. Chief safety Tyrann Mathieu, the landlord, he's all about collecting that rent. And when the champs are in town, the rent increases. Arrowhead's going to be like Boardwalk and Park Place, a monopoly for other teams to come in. It's high rent district, man, for opposing teams. And we all know the landlord gets his money. So Matthew will keep those guys in check.
Well, we know nothing about 2020 has been fair. You already mentioned parents have had to teach their kids. But for this franchise to finally win a Super Bowl and then on opening day, only 20% of Arrowhead will be filled. How disappointing is this for the guys?
It's very disappointing for the team, front office, and the fans. Everybody's a little bit bummed. The loudest stadium in the land will be somewhat muted, you know, with only 22% capacity, about 17,000 people. But believe me, there have been plenty of parties and celebrations over the past 7 months. I mean, some folks may just be recovering from February. We did get to see 2 practices with about 5,000 fans. They saw the banner raising ceremony. They watched the ring ceremony online. Plus, just about everyone in Kansas City has watched the Super Bowl several times since the last time you and I saw each other in Miami. And if you've been to Kansas City, you know folks here really don't need a reason to fire up the grill and have a few beverages. So plenty of Kansas City folks are going to be a bit sluggish heading into work on Friday.
Well, they sure had an interesting offseason in Tampa Bay. That's where a man named Brady shocked a lot of people, parted ways with Bill Belichick and the Patriots, and bolted to the Bucs. Dan Lucas covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for WFLA TV. Dan joins us now from sunny Tampa. Dan, how much of a game changer was the Brady signing for this organization?
Well, not only was it a game changer, it was a franchise culture changer because as soon as the word hit here back in the springtime that Brady was even a possibility, and there were several days in between that and the official signing, I mean, this town was buzzing, and fans were already wondering, when can I get my Brady jersey? When can I get T-shirts? Season tickets went through the roof, and then, of course, the world stopped, and so it's unfortunate in that sense for the Bucs franchise, but there has not been this much excitement and anticipation in a long time around here for Bucs fans.
Yeah, and then Gronk comes out of retirement. What have you seen from him in camp? Can he still be a weapon that he was in New England? I mean, he did sit out an entire season.
Yeah, believe it or not, Gronkowski showed up, and he's in tremendous shape, as we all know. It took him a little while to get going in the football sense, a difference between physical fitness and football shape, and he admitted he was having a little trouble early on, and of course the humidity here in Florida really hit him hard, and he's talked about that on a number of occasions now. He's up to speed now, and conveniently their first game is in an air-conditioned Superdome, so the humidity is not going to be a factor, but yeah, I think the connection, the chemistry between Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady, we've seen that emerge again. And I would have to say they're right where they were in New England, but they're both in a new offense. They're both learning new schemes and new language. So it's a learning experience for both of them. They're going to have to rely on that chemistry to be successful.
So Brady worked his magic with some decent receivers in New England, but I can't recall a time where people said he had the best receiving core in the game. He might have that in Tampa. What has he had to say about the weapons he inherits?
He's like a kid on Christmas morning, inheriting Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And as a duo, I mean, they might be the best duo in the NFL. Statistically, last year, they both ended up getting hurt towards the end of the season, but they were in the top 3, the two of them, all year long in receiving yards. So the proof is there in the numbers. I just think that Brady is learning the chemistry between those guys as well. In a sense, it's been a new experience for Evans and Godwin on the same token. So used to playing with Jameis Winston, in Evans' case, his whole career. And so it's going to be an adjustment period as well. But listen, Tom Brady looks around him, and he's got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, who really is the #1 tight end here, Rob Gronkowski. They just signed Leonard Fournette. It's almost embarrassing, the riches. And to say all in is an understatement for Tom Brady. And I feel like now, get into the playoffs. If they don't make a deep run in the playoffs, I don't know if we call this a success with what they've put on paper. And I think there's some pressure on Brady in that sense.
With Brady in Tampa, the Patriots have a new quarterback under center. Here to break down a turbulent offseason of the New England Patriots is our Patriots correspondent, Yanni Caracas. Yanni, how strange is it to see the Patriots without number 12?
It's been really bizarre, Jack. I mean, we're talking about the last millennium, the last time the Patriots entered a camp without Tom Brady, 1999. And we thought it was a Jarrett Stidham, Brian Hoyer situation until on a Sunday night in July when word came out that they signed Cam Newton. So it's been strange to say the least, but so far so good. They're in a honeymoon phase, so to speak, with Cam Newton. He says he loves it in New England. Bill Belichick is throwing bouquets his way, something he didn't always do with Tom Brady, especially towards the end of their 20-year run. So all things considered, when you move on from the so-called greatest of all time, it's been pretty smooth because Cam is an established name. He's a former MVP, and he's a different sort of quarterback than Tom Brady. So it's not Brady's replacement as much as the Patriots moving on to someone else.
So how has Brady looked in camp, and do the Patriots change up the offense with a quarterback with a little different skill set?
This is what's so exciting about week one, right, is that no one knows what to expect. But you'd have to imagine Josh McDaniels, who's been in the Patriots system for so long, he has a new car in the garage. He can do some different things that Tom Brady never did. I mean, it's no surprise to anyone Tom Brady wasn't the most mobile quarterback, your traditional pocket QB. So I think the Patriots will get creative with Cam Newton, especially around the goal line. You go back a couple years when Brady was suspended for Deflategate and they had Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett. Even those game plans were much different with those guys. So I would expect the Patriots to switch things up a fair amount. But with the uncertainty of no preseason games and the practices I went to, they're not showing a whole lot of scheme in front of us, the media, in terms of trick plays or creative formats. So we'll have to wait and see come Sunday.
Yeah, usually Belichick's so forthcoming with information. Now, Brady isn't the only big loss. Kyle Van Noy left from Miami. A league-high 8 players opted out, some key players. Can this team realistically compete for a title to make the playoffs?
That's the big question. The roster for the Patriots isn't all that great. You mentioned they lost 8 guys who opted out for COVID-19 reasons. Dante Hightower, who's the guy who calls the plays on defense. Patrick Chung, they lost their right tackle, Marcus Cannon. Not to mention Brady and guys in free agency like Kyle Van Noy and Jamie Collins. So they have a lot of guys to replace. The Patriots are going to have to rely on a lot of first and second year players who haven't really proven much. So I don't think this roster is all that great. They have some uncertainty at receiver. But the thing the Patriots have is they have great coaching. And I always tell people somehow Belichick with duct tape will somehow get this team to 9 wins. I think they're going to go 9-7, sneak into that this year. Remember, there's an extra wild card spot. I think they sneak into that 7th wild card spot. But the days of going 12-4, at least temporarily, are over. But I think they go 9-7 because you can count on the Patriots to play mistake-free football, good special teams, and if the defense can hold serve like they did last year, I think they'll be okay.
One of my favorite movie lines is from Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Sadly, as the Rams are about to find out, that's not always the case. The Rams play their first ever game at SoFi Stadium against the Cowboys of all teams. But SoFi will be empty. No fans allowed. David Pingalore covers the Rams for KTLA in Los Angeles. Welcome to Big Game Bound, David. Normally a new stadium means an electric crowd. How big of a letdown is this?
Well, obviously, it's a major letdown. We're all going through this pandemic, and they opened up this stadium this week. It's completed. It's done. It's nearly $5 billion, and to have nobody in there for a Cowboys-Rams game is going to be certainly a very disappointing, not only for the players that are going to be in this game, but the fans here in Los Angeles that have been dying to get inside this building that has been being built for almost 4 years now.
David, I know you've been inside there. What are your impressions? What sticks out?
There's so many different things that stick out. I mean, it's one of these places where you're going to want to be seen just to be seen. It's California, it's Los Angeles, it's Hollywood. There's a champagne bar. But when you look at pictures and you think you're actually looking at renderings because it looks so not real, because it's so perfect. The field is amazing. There's really not really a bad seat there. What I found really interesting inside the stadium is that, so there's homes that are 2-story. They have like stairs that kind of go from, obviously, the wraparound stairs. They have one like going from one level to another level in there, and kind of hang out on this stairwell that goes up and down. But it's pretty magnificent. The scoreboard's cool. It's not like Jerry's World there in Dallas. It's kind of fits to the scale of the stadium, so it's not a polarizing scoreboard, but it's a complete wraparound scoreboard that you can see from the inside and on the outside. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the Rams took a step back last year from Super Bowl to 9-7, missed out on the playoffs. The NFC West might be the best division in the NFL. Is this a playoff team?
No, I got them winning like 5 games. Not a playoff team at all. I mean, like you just mentioned, the NFC West has Seattle and San Francisco. It's amazing how, like, it's flipped. I mean, just a couple of years ago in the run of the Super Bowl, you know, they were talking about Sean McVay being like this dynasty here in Los Angeles. I don't see that happening. The Niners have come a long way, and so have the Seahawks last year. So I don't see them winning 5 or 6 games. That is it.
We touched on this topic briefly with Jarrett Payton. The NFL hasn't exactly taken the lead in the fight for social justice, but this season things are changing. In one end zone, you'll see the slogan, "It takes all of us." In the other, it'll read, "End racism." The league will also allow similar visuals on helmets and caps. Dolphins special teams captain Kayvon Frazier is one of the players that walked in marches this summer, and he offers a unique perspective as to why this conversation is so important. Kayvon, what emotions hit you as you watch what's happening across the country?
You know, it's definitely emotional for us, especially when we constantly see, our brothers out there being, killed and, tortured, and all this other stuff going on. It's definitely, stuff that, we all went through I went through when I was younger.
After you watched that video of a Minneapolis police officer put his knee on George Floyd's neck and kill him, you shared a very powerful story on Twitter. Police here in Grand Rapids pushed your face against a wall, had your hands behind your back, and you were 10 years old. I'm going to let you pick it up from there. Why and how did this happen?
Why? I don't know. I know it has to do with my skin color, though. But how? So I was 10 years old. I was with my mom at Myers, the grocery store, and my mom was just outside, and I was just hanging out with her. She was outside fellowshipping and talking to some of her friends about God, and she do that a lot because we're both really big in our faith. I was just standing there waiting for her to go in the store. And that's when I noticed, 4 police officers, approaching me. And, I was 10 years old at the time, so I didn't think they was going to come to me. But, when I seen them, coming to me and say, "Put your hands behind your back," and they pushed me up against the wall, a brick wall, my face was touching the wall. And, they was definitely rough with me at 10 years old. All I could remember is my mom yelling, like, she's yelling at them, she's, using some swear words. And also she's yelling at me and telling me not to, make any false moves or don't do anything and stuff like that. And as a 10-year-old, for them to really view me as a threat, it's definitely traumatizing. And, it showed me what I was up against, just growing up in America as a black man. It was so traumatizing to me that I just wanted to forget. And I did until this incident happened. That really could have been me at 10 years old. I could have been one of the next hashtags or, one of the first ones.
Kayvon, how does something like that impact you? And did that make you want to speak out?
Oh, for sure. I mean, even if that never happened, I still would have spoke up because before anything, I'm a black man. But since that really happened, that kind of made me a little bit more passionate about it. And, and now since, I do have a voice, I do have a platform, I'm going to use it to, to get a change here. And I'm going to use it to the best of my abilities to help my people who don't have a voice.
How important is this conversation right now? And how much further would you like to see this go?
Yeah, man, it's very important. And I know it's, I know it's a challenging topic for a lot of people to talk about. But it's important, and it's something that needs to continue, until we get, change and until we get, laws put in place. And even farther along, even after that, it's still something that we need to continue. That not only black parents need to have it with their kids, but, white parents need to have it, with their kids at the dinner table, and that's where it starts. you know, me growing up, my mom always had a lot of talks with me about how I'm going to be treated and, you know, how I'm going to be treated differently and what I need to do differently. And when I get pulled over, what to do. Don't make no false moves. Keep my hand on the steering wheel. You know, don't reach into the glove box, even if they ask for my license and registration. Tell them that they can get it. You know, even just small stuff like that, you know, may seem small to some people, but until incidents like this, then people realize it's a big deal. But, you know, and like I said, not only Black families need to have it with their kids, but, you know, white families need to have it with their kids also. So the next generation don't have to grow up like we had to grow up.
We've got a new segment for you on Big Game Bound this year. Kenny White is the Wizard of Odds. He's an odds maker, sports market analyst. You see him on CBS Sportsline as the author and publisher of Kenny White's College Football Power Ratings. You can get it by PDF or a 3-hole binder. He predicts the final score of every college football game, basically telling you what the odds and the total should be for every game. And he joins us from Vegas now. Kenny, you've been in the business for 30 years, over 30 years. How much has live sports betting changed this industry?
Yeah, Jack, it's been great. Live betting came to Vegas probably about 12 years ago, and it's taken some time to really get a grasp. It was last couple of years in the 20 to 25% range of the overall handle. And I got to believe in the next 5 years, in-game betting or live betting will be 60% of the overall handle.
I know the pandemic had a big impact on Vegas and your business. How happy are you to see football back and to have these playoffs going on in the NBA and the NHL again? Some normalcy, right?
And we're resilient here in Las Vegas. It was damaging to the economy, damaging to the casinos. Sports betting, though, stayed open through most of the pandemic. We had Russian ping pong. We've had Japanese baseball, Taiwan baseball, moved into the UFC, NBA and NHL got in the bubble. So things just started to dwarf. And then right now it's the best time of year. Amazing how many sports are going on at one time. Sports betting is as strong as it's ever been.
Really, people are betting on Russian ping pong.
Great market. I'm telling you, it was an amazing market because when the pandemic hit, it was the only thing you could bet on until the Taiwan Baseball League started.
Okay. Well, which game this week now? Well, let's talk NFL. Which game is drawing the most interest from the Sharks?
Yeah, it's the Seattle Seahawks are getting a lot of action against the Atlanta Falcons. That's the one game that people are really banking on, or the wise guys are right now. This game opened up pick, has gone up to 1.5 and 2, and I think you're going to see Seattle a 3-point favorite by kickoff.
Which team drew the most interest for season wins total?
Yeah, you know, you can almost go right down the line from who's going to win the Super Bowl. The Kansas City Chiefs have drawn the most action from the general public. The Ravens, the 49ers, and the Buccaneers, obviously with Tom Brady. Everyone's been interested in Tampa Bay. Their numbers have gone through the roof for win totals and to win the Super Bowl. They're just 12-1. They're the 4th favorite, and they haven't been to the playoffs in 10 years.
How big of an impact did Tom Brady bolting to Tampa have on the Patriots and Bucs numbers?
You know, both had affected in a good way, bad way, I guess, because it brought the Patriots back down to the level a little bit in their division. So there's been a lot of interest. Will this be the year that the Buffalo Bills or maybe the Jets, or could it be possibly the Dolphins overtake the Patriots? So there's been a lot of interest there, but the majority of interest has followed Tom Brady to Tampa. That has been the #1 betting team, I believe, so far over the last 4 or 5 months. They get the most talk. It didn't hurt that they got Gronkowski. They got Tristan Wirfs in the draft. They've made some nice moves. And again, I said 10 years. It's been 12 years since they've seen postseason, the second longest drought. But they're in good position right now to make a run in 2020.
Thanks, Kenny, and thanks to Jared Payton, Dan Lucas, Rob Collins, Yanni Caracas, and David Pingalore. That'll put a wrap on week 1 of Big Game Bound. Enjoy a much-needed break from reality with week 1 of the NFL season. Kickoff tonight with the Chiefs and Texans is on NBC. For Spencer Wheelock and our crew in Grand Rapids, I'm Jack Doles. We'll see you next week.